welcome back to your favorite D2C podcast, The Equation of Excellence. This is kind of a bittersweet one. It's a homegrown talent to go into the bright lights of LA, and then he became a movie star and got his bag and went to go drive his own ship over at Intelligems, but we still love him. Near and dear to our heart, Alex McEachern. Alex was our director of product marketing, among a bunch of other things over at Vermont. I was a huge fan of him. I think I just randomly slid into your DMs or something. I think it was pretty aggressive, and then we just hit it off. I have a really good vibe check. But anyways, as I ramble, Alex, welcome to the show, homie.
Thanks for having me back. And I thought you were going to make some joke about welcome to Vermont Fridays or something like that.
Oh, this is why
it's a weird crossover episode.
Oh my gosh, you're right. It's like the worlds colliding. That is interesting. I forgot about that. Yeah. Dude, people love those. They're some of our highest consumed content. It's internally and externally. So for people that don't know, Alex used to do a really incredible content series called Vermont Fridays, where he would go into frameworks, internal ways to use Vermont, external ways to think about your business, to think about just how to make the money printer go burr. They're very good. Alex is very good on the mic.
Thanks, sir.
So you've been doing some traveling though, right? You've been on the road. You got the Disney World merch. What was the best part of Disney World?
Best part of Disney World is always, man, I have so many gripes on Disney World right now. It's quality's going downhill, but just like exit the real world for a bit, be a kid. Yeah. The little guy, the little man loves it.
He loved it, right?
Experiencing it through his eyes is the best part for sure. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Was it pricey?
Dude, I had a conversation with my wife the other day. I think like 10 years ago, her and I went to Disney World. Flight, food, accommodations, tickets. I think it was like $1,200 a person Canadian to go for a week at Disney World.
Yeah.
I just spent $1,300 Canadian for 2 4-day tickets. No food, no flight, no hotel.
Yeah, that's brutal. Yeah, brutal. So what's new in your world, man? How's the new gig? Tell us about, I guess first kind of give us, what is Intelligems? What are you guys doing over there?
Yeah, so Intelligems is basically a profit growth platform. So think about like your standard A/B testing. Hey, you want to go find places where you can have better conversion, but hey, conversion doesn't necessarily equal growth. I can't reinvest conversion into my growth. So what we're ultimately trying to do is make it so that you can test different levers to find additional profit. Because only profit can be reinvested in growth. So go beyond the content on the page, right? Like don't just test a button change, color, whatever, some copy. Let's actually play around with pricing. Let's play around with the offers, the promotion, shipping thresholds, play with things that actually can have like a big impact on your profit.
Yeah. Dude, I love that. And you're kind of doing a throwback. You're rocking with the old team. Kim's over there now, right?
Kim's over there now. For those that don't know, before joining Rabah at Vermont, I was at Repeat with Kim. So yeah, bringing the band back together in some sense. We worked together at Repeat. She was my CEO, and now we get to work together again at Intelligems. And dude, she's brilliant. She's amazing.
I love it. Man, I think you think of the world in such a unique way. Is there contents, frameworks? Like, what do you, for aspiring marketers? Because I think the one thing that is challenging for you is you've kind of gotten pigeonholed as a product marketer, where in reality, dude, I think you're like pretty much a CMO. Like the ways you can run meetings, the way you think of the field, the way you think of branding and marrying that with product usage. Like, how did you build these skill sets? Because you're still fairly young. Like, is there books? Is there content? Like, how did you kind of sharpen the sword into the katana that it is today?
Yeah, that's a very deep question that I feel like I could talk about for 2.5 hours. So everybody buckle in. No, you're right. I'm like the product marketing front. I think you're right. Like my previous experience, like mostly has been in D2C SaaS, in marketing, kind of like jumping between product and marketing a bit. Yeah. Rabah, as my old boss, knows I get bored easily. I like to jump between things. So you do the marketing thing for a bit, you get bored, you jump to the product thing for a bit, you get bored, jump back into marketing. But I think like the underlying principle, I think the reason it's easy for me to jump between those two things is at the end of the day, they're both project-based. Instead of like sales, success, support. These are all things where like you're kind of trying to optimize in experience over and over and over again. You're sharpening a single thing, where in marketing and product, it's all about like project management, making sure that you're making the right bets, making sure that you can get rid of something. When do you start something? When do you end something? When do you say like, hey, that's enough? Hey, when should I be consistent with something versus like, oh, I should actually get rid of that? Because you and I both know, like, you do something twice, you're not really going to see what the results of that are. You have to be consistent with something to actually see what's going on.
100%.
And I think like sharpening the craft has mostly come from, hey, if there's an aspiring marketer out there, honestly, like working at an early stage startup is such a hack. I started at Smile.io right out of college. It was my first job. I sold printers in college, so I thought I was going to get into sales. They put me into a marketing role and didn't really understand it, but here I am now. And just being able to kind of like, in an early stage company, you're going to be able to touch so many things. Like you're going to have influence over the product. Yeah. You have to be a support rep. You have to be a success person. You have to be a salesperson. And I think like the biggest underpinning thing of this is like, you and I have talked about this before, is the way I see the world is like you can try to make all these like micro optimizations of like what people are. But in my opinion, there's really only two types of people. There's builders and sellers. And I think like the more you can kind of intersect being a builder and a seller, the more successful you're going to be.
Yeah, dude, I couldn't echo that even more. And I completely agree. I think early stage startup is a really good way to get in there. The other place that, and to be fair, they both suck. These aren't like fun jobs that you're going to have like that quote unquote work-life balance, but they will accelerate you on your kind of learning curve. I would also say agencies are a really great place to learn. I've said it before on past podcasts, where you get to sit across a bunch of different verticals, a bunch of different clients, a bunch of different communication style preferences, and you can really expedite and learn quickly. And I'm also just a big proponent of, I mean, obviously depending on what your kind of financial situation is, but really index on learning and value creation in your 20s and building skills, and then start hammering and kind of transition into that specialist in your 30s, where you're going to start to get really, that's when the big paychecks would come. And again, if you can print in your 20s, go for it. But most people don't have any idea what they want to do. Like, dude, personally, I wanted to be an investment banker. And that, like, I started as an electrical engineer because my dad was an engineer. I was really good at math and physics. And then I was like, dude, I fucking hate this. This is terrible. I was on scholarship to run, and like D1 running and going to school for engineering was like, it was terrible. I was like, dude, I just want to go to like a traditional college. So I transferred down. I wanted to be an investment banker. So I was going to go to the business school, and then I shouted an investment banker, and I fucking hated it. I was like, I don't want to do this. So then I was just like, fuck, I guess I'll just get an economics degree. So I have some sort of degree out of university. And then I had no idea what I wanted to do in my 20s. And then I finally got into digital marketing. And then, so I think what I'm trying to say is, if you feel lost in your 20s, I think it's okay. But as long as you're building skills that can generate value, you'll find you should have enough motion to, things will start to coalesce and find yourself. Versus if you're just going for paydays in your 20s, I think what happens is you lower the ceiling on your earning potential too early.
Totally agree. And even what you were saying, like, hey, being a generalist and like then go specialize in something, like if someone's listening to that and saying like, because I've always considered myself a generalist, like I don't know if I'm actually ever going to specialize in anything, but even if you just try a bunch of things, you figure out what you do like if you want to specialize in something. And working at a startup and being able to kind of see everything, or like see the field from a bunch of different perspectives. And the agency call, it's a great one, because if you think you've done something once and you can repeat that over and over and over again, I'm telling you right now, you can't. Until you've seen a pattern, you're not going to be able to actually know what's going on. But even if you start to do that, like you can go start your own thing, go be a generalist for yourself. Like there's just so much opportunity from having kind of like that breadth of experience early on, especially at a startup or an agency or a baby agency. Like that's the ultimate.
Completely, dude. And the other thing that I would say is you start to, for lack of a better term, spread your seed and get a really great network that you can start to lean on as you ladder up in the world. And that's why I'm a big believer in don't be a dick, man. Even if somebody screws you over, like I'm not saying don't get run over, like stand up for yourself and leave. But man, I've taken the low road a couple times, and I've never once, dude, it's always the wrong decision. Like never make emotional decisions, never like There's a great, I think it's Socrates or Plato, I can't remember, but basically the too long didn't read, I'm paraphrasing, but time gives clarity. And so like never make that decision in the moment. Everybody gets pissed. Everybody's emotional. It's good because when you're emotional, dude, it's way better to live life with emotion than fucking bland going through the emotions every day. Like there's a misconception where people think hate is the opposite of love. It's not true. Indifference is the opposite of love. Like if I hate you, there's still emotion there. There's still something there that's annoying that I'm still giving you energy. Indifference is the opposite of love, where it's like, I don't it's that old Mad Men quote, like, "Oh my God, how do you do all this?" It's like, I don't think of you at all, and that's the place where it's a really, I think, for me, anyways, not as exciting part to live life in. But one of
That's
the
a good
things, that,
call out though for like marketing as well, like the indifference angle thing there, like
yep,
the opposite. One of the things you asked earlier is like, hey, what are some of these ways that you can like become a better marketer? Is sitting on the fence or indifference is where everything goes to die. Ideas go to die, projects go to die. If you are not doing something that is going to absolutely inspire someone and make someone hate you on the other side, then you're not doing anything meaningful at all. And I think like anytime you're going into something new and you need to inspire people to do something, someone is inevitably going to say, but someone's not going to like this, or so-and-so, like, what about this person or what about that person? If you are not going to create like an absolute, I don't know, there's this weird thing like brand and cult, kind of the same thing. Like if you're not going to absolutely inspire a group of people and have that group of people kind of be at odds with another group, like, hey, I want to focus here, and that might come at the expense of this group, and that's okay. They'll hate us, whatever. Now we have like actually something that is going to generate interest, generate buzz.
Dude, I couldn't endorse that more. And I think that is something that people shy away from when they shouldn't, where when you're small, dude, it is actually great to be exclusive and say, hey, I am only for these people. I am not for those people. And that's not a judgment on those people. It's just like, hey, it gives, people want to be part of something, man. People want to identify with something. And if you identify with everything, you identify with nothing. And so if you're like, hey, I am going after males in their 20s to 50s that really care about health and athletics and cold plunges or whatever the fuck it is, like, dude, there's nothing wrong with that, man. I think there's just been this weird, like, dude, this is, I mean, if you born in the States, Canada, or Western Europe, dude, you pretty much won life already. Like, you are starting on third base. And so, like, just, I don't know. I just think that sometimes people index on that too much, where it's like, man, just be a good person. There's a great Marcus Aurelius line, stop arguing what a good man is and just be one. That's what I think, man. I think you should just do, like, everybody's going to be able to bitch about something, but if you can go to sleep at the end of the night and understand that, hey, you're making the world a better place with what you're doing, I think that's kind of enough for me. But one of the things I wanted to ask you, because you were in a pretty scoped role here at Fermat, purposely so, because they have me, but now you're kind of spreading your wings. How are you thinking of org building? How are you thinking of prioritization? Like, I've always wanted to see kind of you in this role because you have the capacity and the capability and the facility. You just didn't need to here because we had such a fucking cracked team that you're like, hey, I just, like, hey, we didn't need you to be this roaming midfielder, to steal a soccer analogy. We needed you to just be this fucking killer striker that when the ball came across the net, you're putting it in the goal.
Yeah, it's a great question. And like, to anyone who's like jumping into something new, I think like one thing that is inevitably going to happen is when you jump into something that is established, like you're not starting it up for the first time, there's a gajillion things that are already happening. There's a gajillion ideas of where we should go next. There is never going to be a shortage of ideas. I think like the number one thing you got to do is come in and just like at the beginning, consume, learn, take in all those ideas, take in everything that's happening right now so that you can figure out what that path is going to be. I think like one of the biggest misconceptions is like, oh, something worked at Fermat, something worked at Repeat, so therefore it will work at Intelligems. That is not true. And like anyone who's hiring a marketer or like someone to lead marketing or head marketing, if they tell you they got the playbook and they're going to come in and run the playbook, that's the wrong person for you. Like that, you need to learn, you need to get the context, you need to get the understanding. So I think like the first few what am I in, like week 4 or something, and I had a vacation in there. So maybe 3 weeks into this is getting an understanding of the customer, getting an understanding of the product, like become an expert at those things so that you can establish strong positioning, strong narrative, strong messaging. Because like all these people, everyone who's going to say we should be in this channel, we should do this thing, we should do this tactic, you're starting at the bottom. Like you're starting without a solid foundation, and you're just going to be like, we should do paid marketing. We should be on Instagram more. We should have a podcast. We should do these things. No, we should have a strong opinion of what our product is and who it's for and where it fits. We should have a strong narrative to take all of that product positioning, bundle it in an emotional way of talking about something, and then figure out all of these channels and tactics that we're going to go do with it. Because without those two things, you're just creating hype. And like hype will get you so far, but like hype is not product market fit. Product market fit is marrying all those things together.
Told you guys, this kid's good. Yeah, hype to me is motivation. Motivation. So there's this great, really brilliant guy named BJ Fogg. I got to go out to his. He has like, man, this was like 10 years ago. God, I'm fucking old. He has this behavioral change workshop, and he has this really cool thing called the Fogg behavior model. Funny enough, basically, what the fuck is that guy's name? James Clear. James Clear was like a protege of his, but kind of like, I don't know, there's a little bit of bad blood because he I don't want to say stole his ideas, but he refined them in a way that was more marketing exciting.
Remix them.
Yeah, remix them in a way that was more palatable to the market than BJ's kind of very academic stuff. But anyways, all I'm trying to get at is behavior change only happens when motivation, ability, and prompt happen simultaneously. And where I'm landing the plane here is motivation is the worst thing you should lean on. It's the weakest link of those three. And motivation to me is very akin to hype, where it's like you go to Tony Robbins or whatever, and everybody's there and they're like, yes, I'm going to change my life. I'm going to eat clean. I'm going to do all this stuff, walk over coals. And they literally leave the arena and go get McDonald's. And you're just like, it's just so fickle and fleeting. And so again, hype masters are good, but there's a time and place for them, and they shouldn't be your foundation. I think what you're talking about is knowing the product. And once you know the product, and I think the way kind of just to going back to a remix it back to you, is that basically you know the product and the capabilities of your product, and then you can go understand where that lands in what jobs are your customers hiring you to do, and how does that align with the capabilities of your product. There's again, if you guys have listened to any podcast, you know I'm a big jobs to be done guy, and one of the best things, this is what I thought you were just absolutely cracked at, was you could identify the struggling moment, and that's the perfect place to either market or productize, because that's where people have that emotional, they hit this wall. I'm like, gosh, why couldn't you just think of this or do it? Or why doesn't it work like this? This doesn't make sense to me. But once you figure that out, the surprise and delight of using something when you have that issue, that's what I think Ramp is just fucking phenomenal. I remember using Ramp and I was like, dude, this is so stupid. I get a lot of reimbursements because I'll put stuff on my personal card when I travel or whatever, and then I just do my expense reports. And I was like, man, this is so dumb. I have to figure that. Why can't I just fucking have a personal email, and just forward the receipts from my personal email to Ramp like I can from my business email? And then I realized, I just Googled it. I was like, oh my God, I can add emails that then attach to my, and that level of thought, I forget, I think it was Peter Thiel or somebody calls it the idea maze, of somebody that goes through the idea maze and understands, and that goes back to your understanding the customer and what the job to be done is. That is, man, dude, you get a customer for life. And going back to the BJ Fogg thing, there's something called automaticity, where if you can win early on, it's a million times better than winning middle or late. And so if you can make that person feel like they are on top of the world at the very beginning of the interaction with your brand, your company, your product, dude, you have a customer for life, or you have to really fuck up to break that customer. And I think that's one of the things that was one of your superpowers, where you could kind of almost see the matrix in that way. And I thought that was, that's why I'm so bullish on you as a marketer, because I think the best marketers are product people at heart.
I think like the way, like you were saying, winning early, right? Like, hey, the way that you start a relationship, I think like that's another common kind of problem that you see in like the intersection of product and marketing, is like well, we have all these established users, they're using this a certain way. Like one of the things you got to quickly understand is like how fragile is that? Like, are people using this, but like there's a gajillion other alternatives out there. And like in a second, they could jump to something else because this does the same as this. And hey, this alternative exists, or I could just choose to do nothing. Like, hey, I don't even want to do this at all. That's why that like positioning and narrative stuff is so important, because if I start this relationship the right way, and like the relationship is not when I sign a contract or when I install the app. It's like when I started interacting with that brand, when I started interacting with the people at that brand. Are they talking about this a certain way? Are they telling me to do something? Like your ramp example, that's solved with like, hey, here's like a product enhancement. But like sometimes like you don't even need to solve it with a product enhancement. You can solve it with just like marketing material. You can solve it with, hey, talk about it this way. Like instead of like, hey, here's a new feature. It allows you to forward your expenses to an email. Even just like talk to the pain of it. How annoying is it to have to like collect all these receipts and do this thing? Wouldn't it be great if, and like even just inspiring people in that way to like own an area of the market, own a space in someone's head and in someone's heart, so that like when they think about these things, they think about you.
Dude, that's exactly right. And I think that's why you've been so successful in B2B SaaS, because B2B SaaS is, man, I've been in D2C and B2B SaaS and app. B2B SaaS is by far, especially high ticket, it is the game on super expert hard mode compared to D2C. And I'm not saying either are easy, but the sophistication and complexity of the conversion cycle for, see all those big words? I'm going to get severanced over here. Too many big words. That it's a lot, man. But being that omnipresence and just being this value factory of just putting this awesomeness out into the world, and you become this thought leader in X, Y, or Z. Like when I was at Triple Whale, the whole goal was a helpful exercise can be for people at home listening is anthropomorphize your brand, make it a person, make it a human. And would you want to hang out with that human? And so at Triple Whale, what I wanted to do was make it as, this was almost like this very awesome, approachable college professor with the leather on the elbow pads and stuff like that, but also smoked weed. Like he super knowledgeable, but also very, very approachable, where it's like people will not learn if they're self-conscious. People will become, and that's why we did a ton of memes, because humor is one of the best ways to diffuse anxiety. Where it's like, hey, dude, we're all just here to have a good time. There's no expectations, no obligations, just vibes, baby. We just want you to learn, and you can learn as much or as little as possible. And everybody's on a journey, and everybody's at a different point in their journey, and there's no judgment where you are. Because you're here, because you're consuming this, you are already steps ahead of these other people. And that's why we went really heavy on marketing, or on meme marketing. But going back to your point, that wasn't the pillar. And so everybody tried to copy this meme marketing playbook. And that was just a piece of the ecosystem that we built that was very, very successful. And it was awesome. But when everybody started to copy this, it didn't work because they didn't have the other pieces of the puzzle that clicked into place that then made this incredible kind of nuclear reactor style Iron Man suit. And I think that goes back to your point of playbooks, where I am less of a fan of playbooks and more of a fan of frameworks, because frameworks will give you the mental models to see the world through a certain lens that then you can nuance to your company.
Couldn't agree more. I mean, like a great example of like the meme thing, like, yeah, just creating memes and being funny is not the playbook. Like it has to be related into something. It has to be at the intersection of a job to be done and what a product can do. And they're like, not everything needs to be like, this is maybe blasphemous coming from like a historic product marketer, is like not all marketing needs to be related to the product. It doesn't even need to be about the product, but there always needs to be at least a loose through line to what the product can do, the job to be done, or the ICP. Even if it's not related to the product, it's related to the person. And like, if you guys want to go look at this, like done masterfully, like go look at what Motion does with their memes and their content. Everything that is produced, it is not necessarily talking about their product, but it's talking about the frustrations, the motivations of their customer. And every single piece of content that gets put out, like I can relate it back to, yeah, like every marketer is going to experience. If you're creating ads, you felt this pain. If you've done this, you felt this joy. everything really breaks down to like emotion, solution, logic. I buy based on emotion, I search for a solution, and I'll rationalize with logic. Don't get it backwards. If you try to go logic first, you're going to be in for a hard time. And I think when you're saying B2B SaaS is hard, I think it's B2B SaaS actually just tries to go the other way. They're like, oh, we have like, look at 40% of our customers see this, and here's a case study on that, and logic. Here's our solution. And then once you get in here, like maybe we'll throw a dinner for you, or we'll send you a card or something.
No, it's perfectly put in. I think the other challenge with B2B SaaS is very rarely, especially high ticket, is the user, the buyer. And so even at Fermat, Ramp, wherever, you have a champion, you have a decision maker, and very, very rarely are they the same person. And so like at Fermat, we have a growth manager or a paid media specialist or head of marketing or whatever, but the CMO, VP of marketing, what have you, CEO, founder is the person that's actually going to sign the check, sign the contract. And so to your point, dude, you have to have this bifurcated messaging. Like the CMO's job to be done, they don't care about efficiency or landing page. They just want to make more money. They want to be more efficient. They want to, people in SaaS buy with a don't get fired strategy. Like I think people in consumer buy with a no regret strategy. If I'm a consumer, I would rather not make a bad decision than make a decision. And so if I'm on the fence and you give me too many choices, I just won't pick anything because I don't want to go home and be like, fuck, I made the wrong choice. Where in SaaS or B2B SaaS in specific, you don't want to get fired. That's where the old cliche of you don't get fired for buying IBM. And that's why there's certain different messaging resonates with different people where you need to show the capabilities and the jobs to be done to probably the champion, but then you need to enable that champion to have the firepower to go to their boss and be like, hey, but yeah, True Classic uses them, Ridge uses them, these people. And they're like, oh, wow, okay, well, if these people use them, then obviously there's no risk in the system. So even if it doesn't go well, you're not taking this huge risk on your personal political capital that you're going to get fired because you made a bad decision buying dumb software. That's a lot. That's a lot for marketers, and that's a lot for people to think about in the holistic thing. And that's why I think B2B SaaS I also think B2B SaaS, and sorry, I'm ranting here a little bit, but Alex brings this out to me. I think B2B SaaS is way over indexed on quants, and there is very little empathy or customer connection because people get so big that they forget there's customers behind the numbers because you get these super smart people running these crazy experiments. Let's do this and let's do that. And I do think there's a time and place for that. But honestly, from 0 to 100, you really need 0 to 100 million. You really should be connected to your customers. After that, then yeah, run playbooks, run this. Like you have so much inertia at that point that you really just got to make sure you don't fucking burn the house down.
Yeah, I think like one of the biggest things there is like the user versus the buyer. Who are you marketing to? Because you can actually market to either. And this comes back to the like, don't run the playbook, use the frameworks, right? Like, hey, if I am a freemium land and expand, I want to be marketing to the IC. I need to get that person into the product, be successful, and then share their success. If I'm not offering a freemium solution, or if I'm not letting you like install with a trial, and I need you to book a demo, then I need to be appealing to that decision maker, and I need that decision maker to understand how someone's going to use it. So like, it's not that like it goes one way or the other. You just need to figure out like, where am I starting? Who am I? You're going to market to both, but like, who am I starting the relationship with? And I'm like that, how am I going to empower that person and then give them the tools to spread it? And is that going to come from the buyer or is it going to come from the user?
Yep, you're exactly right. And one other thing that I would add is people experience the world in stories, and you need to give them stories. And obviously stories with data are very, very compelling, but data in and of itself is not a story. And so that is something where you can see a lot of red flags in businesses where you will have the expected outcome and people will still churn, or even better than expected outcome, people still churn because they're just like, I don't know why I am succeeding. And because I don't know why I'm succeeding, I can't tell my boss why I'm succeeding. And I just, again, I have yet to have this framework annihilated, but unless you're the founder or CEO, the only thing you should care about is making your boss happy. If your boss is happy, your life is good. If your boss isn't happy, your life is miserable. And that is so hard to understand because there's people that care about the business more than they care about what their boss wants. And again, this is going to sound terrible and this is going to sound crass. It's not your job. You're not the CEO. You're not the founder. Your job is not to make sure this business doesn't go out of business. Your job is to do what the fuck you're hired to do and make your boss happy. And that's really challenging for people that want to have impact across the org. And I'll tell you from somebody that's done it, it doesn't work. You can't push change up. Change only comes top down, for better or worse. Definitely orgs, there's some orgs that are better than others that have a flatter kind of hierarchy than others. But that's something where I've seen a lot of killers burn out because they see fires in other places and they go fix those, and then their house isn't in order. All these other departments look great, but their department looks terrible. And their boss is like, what the fuck have you been doing all the time, Rabah? And I'm like, no, but look, I did this and that. And like, I don't care. I hired you. And it sucks, but it is what it is. And I think that is, or for me anyways, that was a big learning where you need to handle your own house and make your boss really happy. Because what happens is when you do that, then you actually expand your locus of control. And then I can explicitly give you more responsibility and ideally more money to go say, hey, there's fires over there and over there. You did a really good job putting this fire out. Can you go fix those? And I think that's, I know it's really hard for ambitious people to get their head around that. Or for me anyways, personally, it was very challenging in the beginning of my career because I saw so many fuck ups everywhere. And the other thing that you'll learn as you get older, everybody's making it up. Nobody knows what they're doing at whatever stage. Dude, I've worked at Whole Foods. I've worked at massive agencies. I worked at small agencies. I've run my own agency. Nobody knows. Nobody has any idea what they're doing.
I remember when I was in college, I did a co-op term at Conagra Foods. And like, for those that don't know, it's like Chef Boyardee, Orville Redenbacher, like some like massive like household names. And I was like, I had only done startups before that. I'm like, these guys are going to be so buttoned up. Like every decision is going to be so sound. And I remember getting there and be like, what the fuck is going on here? Like they're just making it. They're just making it up too.
They're reading the chapter before you. That's it.
Exactly. But like the one thing you said there with like making your boss happy and like the locus of control, it's like, I think there's two things. And like, I'll speak from experience. Like Rabah was my boss. Like, I think there's two things that can help you stay sane there. And like, one thing is like, sometimes you just have to let something burn. And like, hey, like I could jump over there and fix it. I could go do the thing, but sometimes like it just has to fail. Cause one, it will show that there needs to be more resources there, or that like, hey, we need to actually go invest there instead of like hiding it across all these things. And to like, make sure your boss is happy. Like the one caveat I would say with that, and like, Rabah can tell you guys if this is like the worst thing ever, but like one of my big kind of like tenets is like, say the thing.
Yes.
I will always disagree and commit, but I will always make sure that someone knows that, hey, I don't think this is the right way. Here's how I'm seeing the field, just so you all are aware. Like, take that with what you want. You can make the decision again, like, got to come down. Hey, where are we? Like, what do we want to do with that information? Oh, that's going to change how I'm thinking about something. Or like, hey, good to know, but we're going this way. It's going to make you feel a lot better. It's going to make you feel like you have more control over the situation to say the thing than it is to be like, oh, I'm just going to like not say anything, think this is the stupidest idea ever, and just like continue on with it. Because like you're actually doing everyone a disservice, because like you are not going to be motivated to do the work. You haven't shared the information, and like nothing's going to like be the best it can be in that situation.
Yeah, man, that's so spot on. It's very, very astute advice. Kind of just building on that, I think the first thing you said so good, where the thing that happens when you do let things burn is priorities become really clear. We're like, hey, dude, and again, it's not your job. I know you want to go do it and fix it, but it's not your job. And what'll happen is twofold. Either one, you'll realize that it's not important. So why would you even want to go waste your resources on something that nobody even cares about? And then two, pain causes change. Pain gets resources, where it's like, dude, if it starts to become a really big issue, you're going to get the resources. Then ideally you do get tapped on the shoulder to go get subbed in. I do think there is a certain, again, within your purview, if it makes your boss happy, proactivity is really great. But the other thing that you said was really, really important, because this was something that I was not very good at early on in my career. And Alex, you're a master at. Saying the thing is correct. The problem, or not problem, the asterisk that I would put on that is there is something that I dub political capital.
Yes.
You only have so much political capital in an organization. And there are certain things that are going to cost more than others in terms of calling them out. Because by nature, when you call something out, whether it's explicit or implicit, it's going to be a judgment on somebody because somebody owns that and they're not doing it. So you need to be very cautious and cognizant of what you're doing and what hills you want to die on and how much political capital you want to spend. And there's also a cadence issue. After you bring something up to your boss 2 to 3 times and it's been asked and answered, just move on, man.
Now you're
just
complaining.
Move on.
Now you're complaining.
Now you're complaining. Exactly. You don't want to be you don't want to be seen as dinging team morale or whatever. There is a really good thing to bring things up. And then the other thing that you said is so important. Do not call things out in public forums that you can share with your boss in private. That is so important. You never want to do that, man. You never, and this is what you said. This is actually an Amazon thing of a disagree and commit. You can have very lively conversations in your L10, your leadership, your departmental meetings. Never hit the general channel in Slack. Like, that is just not the path, man. That is not the path. It's going to be good for nobody. It's not the path. And so those are the things that I would say you're spot on, and you were a master at it, man. There's always, especially in startups, there's always going to be something. You bring it up once, you bring it up twice. And the last thing I will say is I have no tolerance for people that bring a problem up without a solution. If you don't have a solution for me, don't fucking bring it up. You don't think I know there's a fucking problem? Of course I know there's a problem, but I got all these other things going on. But if you come to me and bitch about something and then you don't have and this is how I would fix it, I don't want to hear it. And so that's what I would kind of internalize all that, where you do want to say the thing. You want to say it in the right moment, in the right context with the right people. You never want to be publicly negative, and you only have enough political capital where you, to your point, like Alex said it perfectly, you don't want to be seen as a complainer. Like, it's just not productive for anybody. If you can change it and fix it. Amazing. If you can't, move on. Like, there's other things that you can do. And it was one of the hardest things that I had to have. And I think when you have, like you said, builders and sellers, when you have that builder mentality and you just want to fix and build and stuff, one of the most awesome things to look for in a hire, but it needs to be tamed and unleashed, because if not, then you just get this kind of wind up toy that just goes and pisses everybody off.
Yeah. Like the thing about like, hey, come with a solution. I think like one thing when you're talking about like political or like social capital inside of a business is a lot of times like your boss is going to know something is off the rails. And sometimes like letting them know that you know it's off the rails is actually like a really smart thing to do. Rabah, yes. You're probably looking at this and you're probably saying, wow, that's a dumpster fire. I'm letting you know, I know it's on fire, but I don't care right now because I'm focused on X, Y, and Z thing. That buys you so much capital because like you now know that I am aware of the problem. I don't have a solution for it. I'm not telling you it's a problem and there's a solution for it. I'm telling you it's a problem, but it's not the most important problem to solve right now. I am devoting my mental energy and my resources towards X, Y, and Z. Are we aligned on that? Yes or no? I think that was like one of the like ways that we work the best together is like, 100%. Rabah, these are my 3 things. These are the things I actively don't care. Not only these are my priorities, but these are the things I actively don't care about right now. Are we aligned on this? Yes or no?
Oh, that's such a great point. In the again, I'm getting the joke of the producer in the ear. We need to turn up the heat because we keep agreeing with each other. This is also why we work so well together. That's so spot on, man. And this is also something that I had to learn when I was younger, where your boss has no fucking idea what they're doing. Literally built a whole marketing OS system. I am OCD organized, and I still have like barely any idea what the fuck anybody does, because you're just out you're working, you're in your own, everybody's in their own worlds, man. And the ability to make sure that your boss knows what your priority stack is so important. And as a leader and a boss, it is so nice to just get, hey, this is what we did in our one-on-ones. Like, here's what I'm working on this week. Amazing. Awesome. Like, you want to give your killers autonomy. And I think the other thing that I would build onto that is a corollary of I have done a way better job of not doing this, but there's certain management styles that love the swoop and poop or love shiny object syndrome. They're like, oh, hey, Alex, I just thought of this. Let's do this. And you're like, okay. And in my early stages, I would do that and then understand like, oh man, that was just my boss being excited. And so I think one of the best things you can learn as you're growing in your career is how to say no. And so the ways that I have found was if it's a subordinate, it's really easy. Just like, hey, fuck off. I don't care. I'm not going to do that. If it's somebody lateral, you want to say, hey, okay, cool. Well, what are like my boss is setting my priorities. Here are the priorities that I'm working on. Do you want to go talk to him and her and see which of these priorities you want me to take off to slot this in? Just because you want me to do more stuff doesn't make my bandwidth bigger. And then the boss is the most challenging one, but it's also really easy when you get a point because you say, hey, boss, I'm working on X, Y, and Z. These are the priorities you have given me. Is this the proper priority stack? And then if you want me to work on A, what do you want X, Y, or Z to drop off? 9 times out of 10, they're going to be like, oh, actually, that's the right priority stack. Fuck it. Don't worry about A. But if you say, oh, yeah, I'll do it, you're going to do A. And then the boss is like, why are you even working on A? That's a stupid idea. A week later, why isn't X, Y, and Z done? You're like, but you told me to do A. So I think, dude, that's such an astute observation because what the boss says and what the boss wants are very, very rarely the same thing, especially when you're in the C-suite and you just have people swooping and pooping and like, dude, I just heard this podcast or I just read about this AI tool. We should do it. You're like, pump the brakes. Here's what I'm working on. Is this the trade-offs you want me to make? The biggest thing you can do in your life and in your business is start to see the world through trade-offs. And engineers get it because that's their world, but people outside of engineering, it's a very kind of esoteric way to think of the world because they come from this abundance mentality, which is great. I love abundance, but abundance, people's brains are horrible with abundance. Humans are wonderful with scarcity. If you look at all of our innate kind of instincts, they're all built on scarcity. I don't care. I don't need to know if there's a bunch of deer. That's awesome, but it doesn't matter to me. If there's a fucking bear over there, I need to know that, and I need to know it now, and I need to get away. Why does rotting flesh and dead animals smell bad? Because it signals to me, hey, this is bad. This is danger, and don't eat it. And so, I don't know. That's so important, man. That's something that I overlooked, and it was a real hindrance on my career. And it feels shitty because you're doing more and getting less credit because you're working on things that don't matter. And that's the biggest takeaway, if I would say, is don't work on shit that doesn't matter. Going back to that kind of paradigm, only make your boss happy.
There's product people are going to kill me on this, but like one thing I love to say is like, don't maintain a backlog. Like the priority stack, right? It's like, hey, Alex, can you go do this thing for me? Yeah, let me add it to the list. And it just like goes down this list. And by the time I get down the list, I'm on things that people talked about like 2 weeks ago. And you're going to be like, dude, I told you about that I don't even remember what that was. Like, so there's this like, there's yes and no, but don't maintain this like laundry list of things to do. Always be asking yourself, like, what's the most important thing right now? The most dangerous word in the English language is maybe. Because if I say maybe to you, you interpret it as Alex has this and he's going to do it. But maybe to me was I have other priorities and I'm not actually going to do it. You leave thinking it's getting done. I leave thinking it's not getting done. I then tell someone it's not being done. You tell someone it is being done. And all of a sudden we have an organization-wide mess.
Dude, I couldn't agree with you more. And I joke around about a product backlogs as useful as a screen door on a submarine. I think it's just so dumb. And it's like, I think it's just better to be honest as a product person. Like, no, we're not going to work on that. Come see me in another month, or if I feel more pain, or maybe you can come talk to me in the next sprint, but this is what we're working on. No, like I completely agree with you, dude. And I think it's actually disingenuous to have a product backlog because I, as somebody suggesting something, would much rather hear, no, come talk to me the next sprint than, oh yeah, maybe. And then it's just this thing that's festering and you think something's actually going to happen when it has zero chance of happening. I couldn't agree with you more, dude. I do think there is a really productive product teams have tight feedback loops with a lot of velocity across different perspectives, but that's really hard. And like, if you can just get to a place of a product team, like we always talk about how products, 3 vectors: stability, vision, velocity. If you can just get to that, dude, you're better than 9 out of 10 product teams. And then you can start building in and layering in product feedback and things of that nature. But until you can get the foundations, like, no. Because the other thing that I've seen work really well is you have essentially foundational engineers and then experimental engineers that are a little bit lower level that you can give these kind of little one-off tasks to go kind of decorate the house, where you have the big mountain movers actually building the foundations and the skyscrapers. And I think that, but again, that's a very sophisticated, like if you're at a startup, it's very rare that you're going to encounter that. Because also, to your point, dude, startups aren't about optimizations. They're about growth. They're not about efficiency. They're about step change. And so, okay, cool, this could be a quality of life update, but fuck that. I want to 10x the business. I don't care if my engineers are going to ship.
You don't get to a billion adding by once, right? Like you need to find some ways to multiply. Like, but you can't multiply zero. So like like you need both these things. You need people who are going to make these small incremental moves so that someone can multiply it.
That's exactly
and multiply
right.
Zero.
That's exactly right. Dude, this is amazing. You're amazing. What do you want to leave the kids, the listeners, the marketers with? And then I'll ask you the last question. Is there any words of wisdom from our Canadian crusher here?
Don't try to repeat a playbook. Don't think there's a pattern somewhere where there isn't. Go back to the foundations, go back to the frameworks, learn what those foundations and frameworks are. We hit on a few of them. Go read Obviously Awesome if you want positioning and narrative help. Rob was talking about personifying brands and like giving it a human nature. Go read The Hero and the Outlaw if you want if you want a framework on that one. Ask people what frameworks they use. Go read up on it, become an expert on it, and become an expert on the framework, not the tactic.
Ooh, bar. Okay, amazing. All right, last question. I always follow up. This is the last question of the podcast. What's your equation of excellence? What is excellence a function of?
Consistency.
Oh, that's it. One thing. Love that.
Excellence comes from becoming very good at something, and you're never going to become good at something if you don't give yourself the time to learn it, and that's going to come from consistency. You and I are both runners. You get better at running by putting in the work. You want to run a marathon, you gotta figure it out now for something 4 months away. Consistent work towards that.
That's interesting. Can I push back a little bit?
For sure. And you probably think this is a weird one coming from me because I'm Mr. Big Bet and I just said consistency.
No. I thought this is what you would say, but I thought you were going to pair it with another C.
Oh.
Yeah.
Which one?
Because I think consistency is one piece of the puzzle, but if you're a dummy and you're consistently a dummy, it doesn't make you excellent. I think consistency and curiosity. I think when you pair those together, because if you are just consistent on something without curiosity, you can be very you don't grow.
That's a really good clarification. What's the saying? A smart person knows they don't know. A dumb person doesn't know they don't know. So if you're consistent, if you consistently don't know, held. There you go.
Yeah. So anyways, not to take some pour salt in your Kool-Aid, but I do agree with the consistency thing, but I think you need to match consistency with curiosity, because if you aren't trying to grow, for example, like when I was running, the soup du jour, the kind of really thing of the day was the Pavlov training method, where instead of running 10 or 15 miles in a day, you would do 3-5 mile runs at a very high clip. And that's everybody that was winning the state championships and stuff like that were hitting miles, not getting injured, but not doing runs over 5 or 6 miles. They were doing these smaller runs. And so our team didn't do that, and everybody got fucking shin splints and got because we were trying to hit our miles, you know what I mean? And so that's all I'm saying is, like, consistency, great, but having strong opinions weakly held, having curiosity to see, like, if somebody's winning over there, I want to win. And if they're doing something interesting that I'm not doing, I think having the curiosity to make sure that it is could be accretive to you is really interesting. But anyways, that's a really douchey way to close out the podcast, where I told you your equation was wrong, but it's family, it's internal here, it all works. How can the people follow you, Alex? How can they sign up for Intelligems? This time is yours, my friend.
Come find us, Intelligems.io. Some cool content coming soon. So if you follow me on LinkedIn, Alex McEachern, look it up. Twitter, Alex MCEA. if you want to give me a follow. We got a cool one coming soon called Intelligems. You're not going to want to miss it.
Good.
I shared the
intro
intro music with Rabah is an absolute banger. So make sure you're following along with Intelligems so you can hear Intelligems.
Awesome, dude. Thank you so much for taking the time, brother. What is it? We got an incredible newsletter that goes out every Thursday called The Geometry of Growth, curated by the indomitable Alexa Kilroy. It's actually really, really fucking good. You can go subscribe at our website, firmoutcommerce.com. And then if you want to go tailor every touch point in your e-commerce experience, go check out firmoutcommerce.com, book a demo, go make my boss happy. And dude, this is great, Alex. You're one of my favorite humans. All the work you've done at Firmount was incredible, and I'm really excited to see what you build over at Intelligems. It was, I think, a match made in heaven for you, and I'm really excited. So tell Drew and the whole crew hi and give Kim a wave for me. And let me know if you need any updates on Marketing OS, because I got some cool stuff coming for you.
Amazing. Appreciate it, dude. Thanks for having me.
All right, folks, that's it. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.